today's guest is someone who brings everyday emotions to life through her wonderful, amazing, immersive books. Today we will be interviewing Lakshita Bhargav, author of Unsaid and Mixed Emotions. Lakshita, such a warm welcome, to this
Thank you.
podcast. It's such a pleasure having you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
How did you begin your journey as a writer?
I always liked writing. So even if it was keeping a diary or journaling or writing poems, it was something that was an escape for me, was therapeutic for me, was my, I think in today's terms, my safe space. So it's something that I always found a stress reliever for me. And it started just as a hobby, just penning down thoughts or ideas or writing a poem or creating something, maybe writing a short story. And it just blossomed over the years. It's just something that I seem to have always gone back to.
Talking about your debut children book, which is Mixed Emotions, what was the inspiration behind it, Lakshita?
When I decided that I was going to publish my work and write books, I felt like there were a lot of stories that we could relate to that were everyday stories, that were things that we maybe, even if we haven't all experienced, we all are familiar with. And that story was just simply, I think all children go through this phase where they look at somebody else's life or somebody else's way of living and they say, oh, I wish that was my life. So the inspiration behind the story was just to show that there is no place like home. It's always great to go on a journey, it's always great to go visit, to travel, but that feeling that you get when you come home is like no other. And the idea was to bring that story to children. It was to create characters that kids could relate to. So my characters are, they're flawed, they're not perfect. If you've seen the images in the book, one of the girls, her shoelaces are very loosely and messily tied. Her hair is kind of disheveled. So the idea is that the characters are flawed, they're not perfect. She has, and one of the characters has this period where she's at her cousin's house in the book and she's shocked because she hears all these noises that she's not familiar with. So that ability to not be poised all the time and perfect all the time is necessary for me in my characters. And the idea was just to bring a point home of the fact that there is no place like home.
Well, I would really like to state another fact, which is Mixed Emotions has received a five-star review from readers' favorite. So, Lakshita, how has it kind of, boosted your confidence when it comes to writing and, in fact, writing more?
Yeah, that was encouraging and it was exciting because it's one thing to share your stories or your writing with your friends and family. Somewhere I think we always feel that friends and family are going to support us no matter what. But when you have an external objective body, and this is a huge international body of writers who actually review these books, and when I saw that they had given a 5 star and then there was a detailed review that was provided that had a lot of accolades and a lot of applause for the writing, it was heartwarming and encouraging. And I think it's that warm, fuzzy feeling you get inside.
Your book Unsaid has, received great reviews too. So, Lakshita, what was the inspiration behind this book?
Central characters in my stories are always going to be girls or women. And I think where that comes from is I come from a background where I've always felt empowered. I've never felt, I have a brother, and I've never felt a differentiation between me and my brother. But I have learned that a lot of, and I've seen that a lot of girls and a lot of women do. So my idea was to have a character who has a problem and to show the evolution and the development of that character and the ability to overcome. Because I really believe that women are resilient and women possess a strength and an ability to overcome and empower themselves that comes from within. So it's more about inspiration. It's about letting women know that there are obstacles, there are things that happen, in their lives that are beyond their control. But if they're consistent and if they persevere, they're able to overcome them.
Lakshita, no wonder, your books celebrate women. This really brings me to the question, which woman, in your life has inspired you?
So many. I've had my mother is an inspiration in her ability to live in a foreign land, right? I mean, we my parents migrated to the United States in the 70s. And in the 70s it wasn't what it is today. It wasn't where everybody knew where India was. Usually when you said that you were Indian, they assumed that you were Native American because that was what they related to Indian. You didn't find Indian foods. The culture wasn't as embedded as it is today. Like now, you have yoga and you have Bhangra, even in the gyms. You didn't have that back then. So it was a very different world then. It was kind of like being an outlier in a society and trying to blend in. And her ability to do that was extremely inspiring for me. But I've had others. I've had teachers that have been women in my life growing up who have inspired me. One of my English teachers, Miss Seraphin, she was brutal in her assessment of my writing at a very young age, but it was that push that she gave that really inspired me when I write to write with the meaning that I intend coming out in my writing. And that push was inspiring. My best friend has come from a very low income background. She's now a registered nurse with one of the largest hospitals in the United States, and she's done that all on her own. So there are so many women. I have other friends, I have family members who have just been resilient and have blossomed and shined irrespective of what their circumstances have been and irrespective of the obstacles that they've faced. And that's where that inspiration comes from.
Lakshita, if I talk about your writing, which is that, woman author you really relate to, you feel, kind of inspires your work?
So there are two. So one is an old classic, what I consider a classic. Jane Austen is one of
My
my
God,
favorite
yeah, she's my favorite too.
old authors. Yeah. And I don't know if you've read anything from her, but Anna Huang is another one, and she's written the series, the Twisted series, which is essentially, smut books, but it's with a flair. And her ability to merge these characters. So there's a series of books, and it's a group of friends, and incidentally, they're a group of girlfriends. And each book is each individual girl's story. But her ability to weave them in together, her ability to put them together, her ability to develop the characters, to blend stories from one book into another so that there's continuity is extremely inspiring for me. And Jane Austen is just, to me, is just classic.
Lakshita, the power of the pen has always been spoken about, discussed. How do you think, the books that you are writing, the words that you are putting into your book, and the thoughts, that is weaving your stories could actually, lead to more empowerment? How do you think writing kind of transforms and redefines the society?
Because when we share our experiences, and we share them as stories, one is you share an experience or an incident in a textbook, which we've all read history textbooks. But in my experience, when those experiences are shared as stories, it brings them to life. It's one thing to read about something historical in a textbook as data, and it's another thing to read about it as a story with a character who's feeling, who's flawed, who is afraid, who's encouraged, who's struggling. And then when you see the outcome, I think that evokes that human emotion that helps people connect and relate. And it makes that incident or that experience not seem something that's far fetched, that they can't understand or they can't connect with. And that's why I think stories are so important. And if you look historically, there are so many stories that are passed down from generations that have been done so through the ages. And those stories still exist today. They're still alive and they're still told and they're still revered.
Coming to your writing process, how is your writing process like, Lakshita? Do you follow a very strict routine or is it very free flowing?
So there's a basic method to the madness, so to speak. But a lot of it happens in my head. So I like to think about what would I like to write about next? What is the story going to be about? Who are the characters going to be? And then I'll actually create an outline and then start creating character sketches as I think of characters that I want to put in the story, and then build on that, and then would start writing. Let's say if it's a novel, then the chapters, like I would give myself a deadline saying that these chapters need to be written by this date, and then the next few chapters, and then connect the threads. And then, of course, once it's done, once I have a manuscript or just a first draft, so to speak, in place, then reread it, go over it. There's some changes that I might want to make, then I make those changes. And I do that. And then I share it actually with friends. So I have friends and family that I do share once I feel like I have a final draft that I'm okay with. And they read, and then I take their inputs also. And I decide whether I want to incorporate those inputs or if I feel like those inputs would hamper the story or the way that I want the story to be told, then I explain why I'm not incorporating them. But it does take a village. It's an entire process. It's not something you do in isolation. And yes, there's a method to it because otherwise it can become so fluid that you might find yourself writing and not finishing because that finishing is extremely important.
I'm sure, Lakshita, like during this entire process, writers at some or the other point face some or the other challenge. So, when it comes to you, what kind of challenges did you encounter while writing The Unsaid?
So when I wrote Unsaid, when I created the outline for this book, the way that I had intended this story would go is not the direction that it went in. And at first I was trying to make it go in the direction that I intended. And then I took a step back and I said, if this story is moving in another direction, perhaps I need to let it go in that direction. And maybe there's a reason behind it. And I allowed that. So I think while structure is extremely important for me, I think it's important to take a step back and allow the writing to flow where it needs to flow or where it will flow. And often if there's an element where I'm not sure what I want to do next or what I want to write next or how I want to build on this next, sometimes just taking a step, taking a break, looking away from it, maybe picking up someone else's book, reading something else that just removes my book from my mind for a little bit, and then coming back with a fresh, clearer perspective helps.
Lakshita, while you are penning a book, on one side you really want to tell a story. There's story on your mind, that's developing through the entire process. And on the other side, you want to give out a message as well. So how do you balance between the two, between the story that you want to tell and between the message that you want to deliver through that story?
I like this question. So I think it's just about short-term and long-term goals, right? The long term is the undertone, right? There's a message that you're trying to convey, a message of resilience, a message of strength, a message of perseverance. And then the short term is to actually finish the story. So I think it's about remembering that both these things are important and also being flexible, understanding that maybe you wanted to tell the story in this way, but it's okay to convey the message in another way. There was something very interesting that I saw just this morning, which I think kind of packages this really nicely. If you're looking at the number, any number, let's say the number 9, okay, 2 plus 7 is equal to 9, 4 plus 5 is also equal to 9. So recognizing that there are different paths to get the solution or to be able to achieve what you are trying to achieve. And it's okay. It's okay to take a different path. It's okay to step out of your house and decide, I'm not going to go left today, I'm going to go right. It's fine. And being flexible enough to do it, to just understand that if it's flowing in that direction, don't go against the current. Allow yourself to flow, because I feel that makes the writing more natural and more personal and more approachable. I think I personally, I would like my writing to be something that anybody can relate to. For example, Mixed Emotions is a children's book, but it tells a story that I think we can all relate to. We've all gone somewhere and been excited about going there, right? And been thrilled about all the new experiences. And we've all come home and just been so happy to just be back home. Or while we're visiting somewhere, we've realized, yes, there are a lot of nice things about this place, but it doesn't compare to this or that I have at home.
Very
So
profound.
I want my story, sorry, I want my stories to be something that anybody can connect with and to.
Lakshita, World Association of Women Warriors has honored you. So, how does it feel to get this recognition?
Humbling, humbling, because there are so many women. When I went for that award ceremony, there are so many women that have overcome insurmountable, unimaginable obstacles, and it's extremely humbling to receive recognition from such an organization that recognizes women across the world who have really overcome things that a lot of us would not even be able to fathom. So it's humbling, and I would love to continue to work with that organization and association and provide women with at least the knowledge that they're not alone in whatever their struggles are.
I'm sure the readers would love reading your books going forward. So, I'm excited to know what's next. Which book is coming next from this author?
So, what I'm looking at is something for teenagers. And there are a lot of things. I've understood that the school system in India specifically has changed a lot over the years. I grew up in the United States, I went to school there. So I wasn't very familiar with how schools were here, but I have a lot of cousins that are older that have shared their stories. I obviously have friends also who went to school here 20, 30 years ago, have shared their stories as well. And I heard from a lot of parents. I have a teenager, she's 14. And I've heard from a lot of parents how they struggle. And for me, the way the Indian school environment, not the education system, but the school environment is today, is very similar to the school environment that I grew up in the United States. You know, the kind of openness and the kind of tussle that you see happen between parents and children on wanting to choose their careers, these are things that I saw a lot growing up. So I really would like to write something that connects with the youth, that addresses their everyday life, the challenges that they face. And I would like it to be specific to the Indian youth audience, because I think it's very different, because it's about a sense of individuality that I think is very new to our society in a lot of ways.
Lakshita, on one side, we have your readers who are excited to read your books even more. And on the other side, we have writers. There are budding writers. What advice, what message would you like to give to the budding young writers out there who really, want to write progressive writing just like you?
Right. Do it. It's important. I think the only thing, in my opinion, that we truly regret are the things we don't do. And I've met, since I've published these books, I've met so many people and heard from so many people from my past who've asked me, I've always wanted to write a book. How did you write a book? Just write it. It doesn't have to, there is no right or wrong. This is not an exam. It's not a math exam. There isn't a right or wrong answer. Do it. And you might have many versions, and you might start off writing one thing and end up in a completely different destination with your writing, and that's okay. You might discover something about yourself in the process. And I think that's one of the key things. I think the best advice that I could give anyone who wants to write is to keep writing. Just keep writing. And it doesn't have to be perfect. There is no perfect, because what speaks to you may not speak to someone else, but it might speak to 10 other people. And it's okay. It's like movies, right? We all have certain genres that we like. My daughter loves horror movies. Okay. I am a little reserved about horror movies. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of all horror, but there are some horror that I'm connected to. So we don't like everything that we see, right? We don't connect with everything, and everything doesn't necessarily connect with us. So I think one of the biggest fears that people have is that my writing is going to be rejected. And I think if you don't get it out there, I think that's the biggest rejection, in my opinion.
Lakshita, since you have mentioned the word movie, there's a question which is coming on the top of my mind. If you could adapt Unset into a movie, like what would be your dream cast be like?
I honestly haven't thought about it. I would want fresh, new, flawed faces. I would want people who maybe were from the theater background and novices. Honestly, I'd want fresh faces completely. Just people who could really get into the character. I feel like theater. There's a lot of inspiration I get from my daughter, by the way, and that's why I talk about her so much. She, as a matter of fact, has been taking theater for the last 3 years, and I also remember taking drama as a child in school. And the amazing thing to me, and this is not to take away from screen actors, there's obviously a resilience and a strength and an ability and a talent that they possess. But one of the most amazing things for me about live performances is you don't get to, there's no retake, there's no do-over. And I feel like somebody who's familiar with live performances, like a theatrical performance, would have the ability to get into the character, to become the character. And there are certain actors that I really admire, because when you look at them, every single production that they are a part of, they're a whole different person. And that to me is the kind of person that I would look at. I don't have a name, so to speak, in mind. I think I'd be honored for my book to be considered for some sort of screen production. That would be a dream come true. And I'm sure we'd be able to find somebody who fits, but I'd look for fresh faces.
I just hope this actually gets translated into a movie and you find the cast just, as you're looking for. Lakshita, now writing can be therapeutic and writing can be pretty intense also at times. So when
Yes.
you are not writing, how do you unwind in your personal life? You have any hobbies, apart from writing? What is it like?
So I've embarked in the last few years on a huge self-care journey. I know self-care is like a buzzword, but I don't mean it in the buzzword kind of way. I mean a lot of just introspection and doing things for me, taking time out for myself every single day. As a matter of fact, the morning is my favorite time. Like early in the morning, like crazy hours, 5 o'clock in the morning when it's quiet and you can hear nothing. And just being able to look out on my balcony and just the greenery and have a cup of hot chai or coffee and just reflect is extremely therapeutic for me, extremely calming. Not really planning for the day, not thinking about the 10 things that I need to do, just reflection. Going to the beach is another thing that's extremely, it's traveling is one of my favorite hobbies. Reading is another because it's a way of traveling without leaving your living room. And I like media. I mean, I love watching movies and shows and just and that's one of the things that I like about our OTT platforms, that you can watch shows from all over the world. We're not restricted to just a certain country's productions and not restricted to a certain genre. So that for me is extremely therapeutic. It's something that I really, really enjoy. And believe it or not, I'm very big on newspapers. I'm very big on physical books. I know we're in the era of digital media and digital books and digital everything, but I am really someone who will take a book and just take in the smell. I love the smell of books. I love the smell of newspapers. So just that feeling of having the newspaper in your hand and that crinkling is euphoric for me. So these are things that I really enjoy. Just taking care of myself, doing things, whether it's physical exercise or mental exercise, emotional exercise, doing things with my daughter because she's growing up and you don't get to be 14 again. And traveling all over the world. Every year, whenever I travel, I choose on purpose a new destination, someplace I've never been. The idea is that I see as much of the world as possible. It also helps me create characters because everywhere I go, I'll sit back and just observe. So it gives me ideas for characters and stories.
We spoke about the beauty of the physicality of newspapers and books, and we know, right, the era where we have ebooks, everything is digitalized. How do you see the future of reading when it comes to going in hand with technology?
I think we've already seen it in a lot of ways. I think because of fast lifestyles, limited time, I think that's why audiobooks are so successful. I know a lot of people, they're driving all day long. They're literally going from one place to the next. So if you ask them to sit down with a book, they might have a book that they keep by their bedside that they read at night, maybe 30 minutes before they go to sleep. But for the most part, they're on the go. So an audiobook is a great way for them to read a book that they've wanted to read. I think ebooks is another thing. I know a lot of people, they find it easier to just have, just carry your device and you have your books downloaded on there and you can choose to read whatever you want to read because you can't walk around. If you're reading, for example, 5 books because they're self-help books, you can't walk around with 5 books all the time. You might forget them. And how many times did we do that? How many times were we, well, at least me, when we were reading a book and, oh my God, I forgot my book at home, and you feel like somebody stole something from you because you had these, you want a very, very key point of the book and you wanted to know what happened next. So I think it has evolved. I think the digitization has occurred, is continuing to occur, and I think we'll see more changes, right? They're talking about a virtual reality kind of scenario, which replaces, for example, smartphones, where we'd be walking around with these VR type headsets. So maybe books would become visual without being a movie. I don't know. They're audio, right? We used to imagine what the characters' voices would sound like. Now with an audiobook, you kind of have a voice to the name. So maybe there'll be a visual where it'll flip in front of you. The pages will turn in front of you. It'll be exciting to see. I think that's the amazing thing about progress. I remember when telephones were corded phones that had the rotary dial
Yeah, yeah,
that you
yeah.
used, and then you had the push one, and then you had the cordless one. So I've seen telephones evolve, and even cell phones when they first came out. We never thought that we'd have something like the internet on our cell phones, but we do. So I think progress is, if used wisely, is always helpful. And I think it helps, actually, it will help authors connect to more readers. I mean, think about the traditional bookstores and how readers are accessing books today or connecting with authors today. It was unheard of. You would see an author's picture at the back of the book and you would just imagine what it would be like to meet the author. But today, you can connect to the author through their websites, through a podcast, through social media, through YouTube, etc. So let's see, it's exciting.
What is, one message that you hope readers take away from your writings?
Whatever it is that you want to do it. Just do it. And I'm not taking from Nike. Do whatever it is that is in your heart. It is important to follow a dream, to follow a vision, to follow an idea that exists. Not all ideas will be fruitful. Not all of them will turn out the way that you want them to. But I think one of the worst things to do is to sit back somewhere way down into your life and say, I wonder what would have happened. What would have happened if I had done that? You shouldn't wonder. Just carry it out. It is important to do whatever it is that your heart feels that you need to do. Whatever it is. If you feel that you need to change the world, do it. Create a plan and do it. If you feel that you need to connect to women everywhere, do it. Right? If you feel that you need to create a new genre of movies or books, do it. I think that's the biggest message. The only thing we regret are the things that we don't take the time out to do. And the second message is use your time wisely, because it's the only commodity you don't get again. You can replace money lost, you can replace a job, you can replace material objects, but you cannot ever replace time.
Very profound, Lakshita, indeed. It was really lovely talking to you,
Thank
and
you. Same here.
I'm taking a lot of insights back. And Lakshita, I hope you keep on writing, and we all keep on reading your wonderful books, and keep on getting inspired and getting key messages about our life. Thank you, Lakshita. It was
Thank you.
such an honor to have you on a podcast today.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me again. You have a great day.
Subscribe to Midday India. Get direct notifications on all our videos by clicking on the bell icon.